What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Epic Handshake podcast, the podcast about epic people that deserve an epic handshake. I am your host, Adon Bonda. You can find me on Instagram at AZGearGuy, as well as this podcast, the Epic Handshake Pod. You can hear this podcast, stream it on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as any other podcast streaming platform. And don't forget the YouTube channel that we have. You can go to YouTube and search the Epic Handshake Podcast. That way you can see my beautiful face for radio. I have my good friend Kevin. He is a mogul of many things in various industries. He's an inspiration to myself and a lot of other people in my circle. He has been an inspiration for a lot of different things that I've done probably in the past year and a half. In previous episodes, I mentioned how I'm part of a group, the Utah Shooter Dudes on Instagram. We're just a group of guys, regular dudes around the state of Utah. Some of them are from outside of Utah. And I've actually been able to rub shoulders with a lot of cool people. And Kevin is one of those guys. And I think as I've come to know him, I've realized that he has a lot of different interests, and I think that matches a lot of interests of myself and then a lot of people in the group. But Kevin, just do you mind giving like a brief background of like what you do for a living, I guess a brief history of how you got into photography, and just other things, and then I can kind of
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Kevin. I run Blackbriar Media on Instagram. My day job is in big tech. I work for a big tech company, and I have for quite a few years. And, I take photographs. I'm interested in, 3D printing and cryptocurrencies and, building and creating and making. Whatever I can make and create is really what I'm into. So I'm really passionate about, how do I improve on an idea, iterate on an idea, and just kind of make stuff generally. I think that's what I love about photography. And I've gone through a lot of different genres in photography, a lot of different publications, some of which are kind of out there. I started off doing astrophotography. Really got to know my gear when you're 3 a.m.
Oh, for sure.
In the dark.
And you guys listening and watching, on the wall, there's an eclipse photo here. Did you take that?
I did. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you can't really see it because it's out of frame, but
sure.
I was very impressed by that right when I walked into this office. And so astrophotography, I mean, that's pretty sweet, man. Like, I didn't realize that you'd done that before.
Yeah. That's kind of where I started my, my photography, experience, career, whatever you might call it. I was working for big tech, excuse me, had the opportunity to buy some gear and do some photo stuff, and sort of started up a little bit of a photo videography, kind of video production practice at this big tech company. And then I started practicing and figuring out what these cameras could really do. I knew I had great gear, and I just needed to figure out how to use it. So I got interested in shooting Milky Ways.
Cool.
So I go out to Tahoe.
Yeah, that's kind of how a lot of people start. They do. They're on a camping trip and they just, hey, look, let's take a picture of the stars there.
Sure. And once you do that, you're like, wow, that's amazing. There's a lot out there. You know, like the Milky Way is a big deal, and so it really forces you to get good at your gear also, because when you're at 3 a.m. in the morning and you're out in the middle of the Black Rock Desert, you better know where your ISO button is, or where,
oh, heck yeah.
Like everything.
Oh, hey, I forgot my flashlight. Whoops. How am I going to find this here?
Yeah.
But you really got to know your gear. And I think that's a kind of a big thing. Like as I've gotten into photography, just like, there's been times where I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Like, I don't know what, like when you first jump into it, you're so intimidated by like ISO and exposure and f-stops and, different terminology for each one of those things. And I think that's been kind of a challenge for me and probably a lot of people out there. And I'm sure, if you guys go to his Instagram, blackbriar.media, is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Blackbriar.media, blackbriar.daily.
.daily. That's right. Go to his account. You can see a lot of the examples, and I'll throw a lot in the video portion, maybe just a few little snippets of some of his work. But I mean, there's a point where you start beginner and then advance, and how long have you been doing this for?
Oh gosh, it's been probably been 10 years since I've been serious. Maybe more like 8, somewhere in that time frame.
Sure.
So
yeah. And was there, okay, so you started then, and so how long did it take you before you kind of jumped into the professional? Like when do you remember your first gig, or do you have any like cool funny experiences with that? Like,
no, that's a really good question. And I think the further you get down the path, the more that you realize that you're constantly just going to laugh at the work that you did 3 years ago.
Oh, for sure.
And so I look at some of the first photos that I was ever proud of. I'm like, I don't know how I was ever proud of those, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's good, right? Because you're progressing. Now, how long did it take for me to feel like I was, like I was producing professional level quality, or, quality?
Yeah.
The reality is pretty quick, but let me caveat that. I think pretty quick because I think that there are a lot of professional photographers who aren't really all that great, that make great money, which do wedding photography or whatever, right? I think that the average person's quality bar on photography isn't that great. When did I first start producing photos that I was really proud of, that I really thought could go in a gallery, could be published in a magazine? Sure. That was probably at the 5-year mark.
Okay. Yeah. Like after consistently doing it for a good 5 years, you said, right?
Yeah. I think that's probably it. And I think what differentiates, right, the 8 years ago me from the let's just say 3 years ago me, is post-production process, right? Being able to take that image, know that I've got a good image, and then know how to process that, build a style around it, just really, and that allows me to go out and be purposeful about, when I take this photograph, I am looking for XYZ.
Right. Being very deliberate with what you want and yeah, for sure.
Because I know what the post-production process looks like.
Yeah.
Like when I, when I have, you or anybody in the studio and we're shooting product photos, like, like a pistol, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
I know where the light needs to hit. I know what my light setup is now. I know, I have presets, and I have, I have actions in Photoshop that make it a lot easier. I mean, it used to take me 2 hours to post-produce a photo, and now it takes me more like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I've just kind of built that muscle.
Yeah, and I've been out with a lot of photographers before, like shooting outdoor photography, product photography, sports photography, and it's amazing because some of them will have their laptop with them, and it's interesting to see how they have their presets already. They hit a button, they hit an arrow key, and it takes it to the preset they were looking for that specific exposure. I don't know the terminology, exposure amount.
Sure.
And yeah, you get to a point in any profession, in any niche, where you find what you like, you find the setup you like, and you stick with it, and maybe make some tweaks along the way. And I'm sure you've evolved a lot, even in the past year, or at least in the past couple of years. I don't know if I could be way off base with that, but I don't know. Is that?
Yeah, you're 100% right. That sort of evolves as a new photographer. I was really worried about, how do I find a style? How do I find my style?
I think that's a lot of people's question too. Like
you're right.
You copying people, a lot of people will, start to copy someone.
Yep.
And then evolve from there. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but yeah, that's just kind of what I thought.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And it develops over time. I don't know that I could pinpoint a time where I said, okay, now I have a style. It kind of just came to me. It comes with experience, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And, and that's been applied to a lot of other things. I mean, because earlier on, you said that you're into crypto, and I know for a fact that you're into cryptocurrency. Is that kind of the same principle, with that? Like, oh, this is happening, let me jump into it. Or, I mean, we don't have to dive too much into that yet, but I mean,
well, I think if you were to ask me what my superpower is, right? I'm not really all that special. I'm not incredibly intelligent. I didn't, go to Harvard. I'm not a particularly great athlete or shooter or anything like that.
Right.
What I am is I'm incredibly persistent.
Yeah.
And I'm a lifetime learner, and I'm very, very curious. I think that's the only thing that really makes me special, but I'm pretty extreme in those areas.
Yeah.
And so when I stumble across something like crypto, I want to know everything about it. I want to know, what is Bitcoin? Why is it valuable? Why is crypto generally valuable? You know, which is more valuable than the other? What macro trends are going to, you know, drive the fundamentals of crypto up, et cetera? Like it was this completely new idea, completely new realm for me to essentially obsess over.
Yeah.
And that's what I find myself doing a lot,
Mm-hmm.
is I'll obsess over photography until I feel like I've really produced some good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe I'll move on to something else.
Yeah.
You know?
Just as Leaf put it in episode 3 of the podcast, he said he gets into a niche or a hobby, finds the crux of that hobby, tries to excel at it,
Yep.
and then moves on.
I completely, that resonates with me.
Yeah, I know. And when he said that, I was like, dude, I'm the same way.
Yep.
I will find the pinnacle of that, or at least try to get as close as I can to it, you know, as time and as money permits, you know,
Sure.
whatever that is. And my wife gets a little frustrated with me because she's like, I only want you to have 2 hobbies at a time, 2 hobbies. Okay. And I'm like, that's probably fair. I'm setting that limit for myself as well. But you know, I find the pinnacle of that hobby, jump into it. And if I really love it, I'll keep going with it, and I'll
Sure.
try to push the envelope for myself. And, you know, that's kind of the thing with a lot of people, you know, nowadays, especially in, you know, our day and age of social media. I mean, there's a lot to learn, you know, and
also this information age. I mean, think about when, and you and I have a few years between us, but
Sure.
but not that much.
No.
I mean, you probably remember what an encyclopedia is.
oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like when I was in 3rd grade, we didn't have the internet. You know, it wasn't a thing that we had. I remember actually. Let me dig into that a little bit. I think the first time I ever used a mouse was when I was in 2nd grade on an Apple IIe, and it was so that I could play.
Those are the ones with the giant floppy disk too, right?
Yeah, exactly. You had to do the warm boot versus the cold boot, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you're talking the same thing.
Yeah, I had a teacher in like the 3rd grade that had a bunch of stuff in like the area between classrooms, and he'd set all these old computers up,
Sure.
load them with old computer games, and we'd have like time at like once every couple of weeks to play. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
So, sorry.
That was like my elementary school, you know, experience was, you know, once a week or whenever it was, we got to go to the computer lab in the library. And we could, you know, play with these computers, and they were amazing. There was, you know, they had the Oregon Trail, and that was the coolest game at the time. And I played the heck out of that game with the little 1-button Apple IIe mouse and the whole deal. Yeah. But I mean, we have access to so much information, and I know, like, this is maybe a little cliche to say it, but I mean, think about the fact that you can go 24/7, 7 days a week to YouTube and learn from real experts, real serious experts about pretty much any topic that you want.
Oh yeah.
And the trick isn't how do I get the information? The trick is how do I separate out the experts from the not experts? How do I separate the garbage from the gold? That's really the largest challenge that we have these days.
Oh yeah. Whereas an encyclopedia, you just saw it. That was the authoritative source there.
Yep.
Yeah. You got to sort through a lot of the crap.
And you may have 2 paragraphs on a stingray, you know? And if you wanted to go look at stingrays on YouTube right now, I bet you could waste 18 hours without even thinking about it.
Easily.
So I just the access to information that we have, the ability for me to like find new things to obsess over, I suppose, is unique. And I don't watch TV. I maybe watch 2 hours of TV with my wife per month.
Yeah, on a streaming service, not even television, right? Like, I mean, that's how I think that's how most people are. I mean, nobody really has cable anymore. I think the only people that I know that have cable are probably over 50, 55. You know, like my in-laws. You know? Sure. Yeah. You know, people that just kind of grew up with that. You know, having a TV set. Nobody calls it that anymore either. TV set.
It doesn't resonate anymore.
No, it doesn't. And, you know, like, it's true. Like, you can really get into watching TV all the time or not. And so, like, because it's all at your fingertips anyway. Yeah. I mean, because we have the world's knowledge in our hand. And it's funny because when you look at some of the things, the trends on Instagram and social media in general, you see a lot of stuff that's just like this is making me stupider when I can find, like I said, the earth's wealth of knowledge in my hand, but I'm going to search a TikTok video of some random girl dancing. Like,
sure.
You know what I mean? Anyway,
I watched a Mr. Beast video earlier today, and I was
pretty entertaining.
I was laughing. You know, they were giving away anything that you could fit inside of like a triangular box or something like that. And I mean, it's crazy entertaining. The fact that we have people which make, you know, really good livings on doing stuff like that is pretty amazing. Like, we live in an amazing world.
Yeah. You know, just so many ways to like make money and spend that money. You know what I mean? Like, you could be a millionaire, but you could still be super poor, you know? And yeah, I know a lot of people that have made money from, you know, like there's some people that I know that have done like drop shipping stores, and all of a sudden they're not doing that anymore because they lost all their capital because they bought a Lamborghini or something like that. You know, and it's really sad to see that. But I digress. We could go into a whole thing about just, you know, gaining wealth, losing it, all that stuff. But let me circle back to your photography, because I know there's a lot of people that are curious to know, especially me. But so earlier I asked if you know, is there any funny stories? Because you said you started and you had, you know, you were a brand new photographer. I'm sure you had some mess ups. I'm sure you had some mistakes. But have you ever like been in a situation where you're with like a kind of a high profile person and just things just don't go as planned, or something of the like? Maybe it was just an awkward encounter? Well,
I think yes and no. Like not. I don't know that I have like a really great example. And here's one of the reasons why I hate shooting photos for money.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason is it's not on my terms. You know, it's I like doing people favors, and I like, you know, like I had a friend who wanted to shoot some engagement photos a little while ago, and I went out and did that.
Yeah.
And I told him, buy me a Snickers, you know, and that was great. And I think he got some good photos, and it was a challenge, and etc. But I have one example. You know, I had a coworker once which asked me to shoot some photos, and you know, she paid me some money to do it, and we went out and did some family photos, and I just could not get it right. Like I was not in the right mental kind of headspace to you know, sometimes when your creativity is just not flowing, and you know, and she's got kids, and I'm trying to get them kind of posed together, and it just kind of wasn't working out, and it really showed in the results, and I was really kind of embarrassed of the results. Now, she thought they were great, and probably they were great according to, you know, what she was looking for.
Of course, yeah.
I just that really taught me that it was a good lesson not to kind of get out over my skis, right? I knew it was going to be a challenge. I went out and I did it, and I pushed the envelope, and I wasn't happy. I beat myself up more over it than she ever did.
Of course.
And probably does even to this day.
We're our worst critics, regardless.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and it's funny that you say that, because, you know, when I've done little photo shoots for people, you know, I didn't think I was any good, but, you know, people were like, oh yeah, he's pretty decent. I mean, he's okay. And, you know, this was when I had like a crop censored camera and all this stuff. And, you know, I didn't have the best gear, but I mean, it was a family member, and, you know, they're like, oh yeah, we trusted Don, you know, he's great and all this stuff. And I'm over here shaking in my boots, and, you know, I wasn't going to charge him anything, because, you know, I don't think I'm any, you know, I'm not even close to being a professional, but like I thought this was a good opportunity to just jump into it and just get my feet wet, you know.
Sure. And it is, to be honest, like that's where you start. That's where you, and it's, I think it's less, it's building experience, but probably the biggest blocker that any photographer or somebody starting something new has is themselves, right? Being okay mentally with saying, hey, I'm going to go do this, and I'm scared, but guess what? I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. And
guess what? I'm going to do it again after that. And then I'm going to try it again. And then I'm going to get kind of good at it. And then I'm going to get comfortable. And then I'm going to excel at it. And then I'm going to go take on a bigger challenge.
Right. Like becoming that professional.
Yep.
You know, and like you said, we're our own roadblock. Nobody else is stopping us. I think I saw a meme not too long ago. It wasn't really a meme. It was like inspirational quotes. But it's like, in your 20s, you care about what people think. In your 30s, you start to not care what people think. 40s, 50s, 60s, you realize that nobody ever cared about you, so why'd you care about them? You know, like, why'd you care about what they thought? And like that just resounded with me. I'm like, why do I care? I'm already 30 years old. I'm like, okay, let's get rid of that childish nonsense. Like let's buckle down and do something that's fun, and if it's crap at first, whatever, and I think that's anybody's, it's sad to see when people get to that point where they're realizing they're not seeing any results, and then they just stop and quit.
Sure.
And I'm like, if you would have just stuck it out a little bit longer, you would actually be successful. You'd actually get to the point that you were dreaming about.
Sure.
And it's sad anyway.
Well, and I think that's what separates, right? People who figure it out and people who are driven, etc. Like, I don't have a lot of quit in me. I'm not good at a lot of things. I suck at a lot of things, and I'll improve and get better at some things, and other things I'll decide like, hey, probably not the time, or hey, I don't really have a lot of interest in. Right. You know what I don't have interest in? Buying an RV and driving across the U.S. That seems like a really dumb idea to me right now. But when I'm 60 and everything's different, and that might be the coolest thing that I want to go and do. Understanding also that interests are cyclical, and things, things appeal to different people. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll be interested in something completely actually, the only thing I can guarantee is I'll be interested in something completely random soon.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and that's me all the time. Like all of a sudden I'm into certain types of video creation, or I'm into some sort of like TV show that I get into, like the like forums. I'm like, okay, let's get into the back universe of this episode or whatever.
I have one other example of kind of a funny story. I was shooting some photographs out at night in Lake Tahoe. There's this rock out there. It's really cool. So I grew up outside of Reno, Nevada. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Nevada is my home. Mm-hmm. And I was shooting some photos on the shore of Lake Tahoe, and I was a little flustered that night because I just bought this nice Apple Watch, and I'm, of course, what could go wrong? I'm climbing down these boulders, and it's pitch dark, and I've got a full backpack worth of like $7,000 worth of camera gear, and of course I slip and just destroy my Apple Watch, like not even funny,
Oh, dude. That sucks.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That was I think it was Gen 2. Anyway.
Doesn't matter.
So I get to, I destroyed that thing.
Terrible.
Not even like close. So I get down to the, to the beach, and it's cool. And I'm out there with another friend of mine, Luke, and we're shooting photos of Bonsai Rock. Super photogenic, amazing spot. And I've got the Milky Way coming right over the top of it. And I mean, this shot is awesome. It really is. I'll pull it up at some point. But as we're shooting out there, and it's probably 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. We keep hearing something behind us. I'm like, what in the world's going on? Like, Luke's not there. Luke's shooting over at this other location. Uh-huh. Hearing something. I'm looking around, and you're trying to keep your light off because it's going to ruin your night vision and stuff. And so after about 10 minutes of this, finally I kind of go walking over these rocks where I kind of hear this noise, and it's a big old black bear. I'm talking a big one, right?
Oh, good. Yep.
And I've come across a lot of bears. Growing up and being in Tahoe a lot, you run into bears pretty often.
Oh yeah.
So we kind of scared it off, but there was this moment of realization when the bear realized that I was there, and I realized that the bear was there. It was a little spooky.
Yeah, it's like that like Spider-Man meme where they're like all the duplicate Spider-Man.
They're pointing at each other.
They're like, oh. Yep, you're here, dude. Bears are scary, man. I did a 30-mile backpacking trip around Lake Shoshone in Yellowstone National Park, and man, that was insane. Cool. Because there was 2 times where we saw bears probably good half a mile away. We're like, we're gonna keep walking. Like, sure. We were gonna stop there, just didn't happen. Then I think we saw another one, and we knew it was a grizzly because we heard the weird loud roar, like the little gruff sound they make.
Sure.
And so we're like, we're just gonna keep going. And then towards the end of that night, we had crossed like 3 rivers. We thought we were going to die that day. Like I have like a video I sent my wife saying like, hey, if I don't make it home and you find my phone, I'm sorry. Like one of those days, like it was one of those days.
Clear my browser history.
Yeah, right. Clear my browser history, please.
It's not something you tell your wife.
Yeah. Don't look at like Amazon. Like, I bought you presents. I don't know. Anyway, but like it was one of those days, and we're literally done. Like it's our 3rd day. We're supposed to camp for the night, and then we were going to hike the next morning. And we get to our campsite, and as we're just kind of getting camp settled, the sun's starting to go down, we start hearing little barks around us, little like a yipping kind of sound like from a dog, and we're like, oh no. We knew what that was, and definitely wolves, and they were rounding us up.
Oh,
Like they were definitely communicating. Like it was like a scene from Jurassic Park where it was freaking raptors coming around, and we're like, oh, we're gonna die. And luckily we were at this like Adirondack looking cabin, and we slept on the steps, and I literally slept 10 minutes that night. Anyway, I've had my close encounter with wildlife, and it's freaking scary. But
yeah, well,
I didn't break any gear. That's the thing.
There you go.
That's if we're gonna make a point out of that whole story, I didn't break my Apple Watch because I didn't have one.
Well, it's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of bears. I've probably seen from like, from 0 to like probably 23 years old.
Uh-huh.
I maybe saw 2 bears, and probably between that and now I've seen 25 bears.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just out and around them a little bit more, but all the black bears that I see, like, I've told people this a couple of times. I don't know how many people believe me, but I really believe this. Like 90% of the black bears that I've ever seen, I feel like I could take them if I needed to.
Yeah,
right?
black bears are the nice ones.
Sure,
Quote,
exactly.
unquote, nice ones.
I was driving through, and I was driving. Luckily, I was driving through South Lake Tahoe one time.
Mm-hmm.
This was after shooting astrophotos again, and it's late. It's like 3 a.m. I'm driving right down Main Street in South Lake Tahoe, and I look over, and there's this bear, Adon, and it was a big old brown bear, but this thing was massive, probably 3 times as big as the biggest black bear that I had ever seen. And it kind of looked at me. It was walking down the sidewalk, and it looked at me, and I kind of looked at it as I was driving by, not real fast. And I was pretty happy that I was inside of a truck, but it's probably the biggest bear I've ever seen. That one I definitely could. That one would have torn me up.
I just watched a documentary about the Kodiak bears on Kodiak Island, out just off the coast of Alaska, and man, those are massive, and they're basically like rabbits. Like there's so many on that island. Yeah, they're all over, and they've been. The documentary was saying that they cross the channel to get to the mainland, and then they realize they don't like it there, so they go back. But the fact that they go where people are just across the island, like there's ranger stations and all that stuff, is scary. But like if you were to stand there for 10 minutes, you wouldn't be more. They said that you wouldn't be more than a quarter mile away from at least 2 or 3 bears. And these things, like you said, are like brown bears in general are massive, but Kodiak bears are the largest
of all.
Yeah, those and like the Siberian grizzlies or something like that. They're just massive bears.
Sure.
Anyway, but yeah, I hope to never get that close to bears ever again in my life.
Yeah, same.
Because those things run at like 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
No, I don't. That's an exaggeration. Like 30, faster than me for sure.
Faster than you, yeah. Well, you don't have to be the fastest. You just can't be the slowest person around.
That's for sure. Or you just ditch your backpack and hope they like it.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there was that guy that was up. It was at American Fork Canyon or one of the canyons in out of Salt Lake, but he encountered that raptor. Apparently, he works at Blade HQ here in Utah County. And apparently, like, I don't know if you saw that viral video of him like backing up.
Yeah, the cougar, right?
The cougar. Yeah, he was backing up, and he's like making all this sound, and he's backing up, and he's throwing rocks, and he's throwing all this stuff, and he took the time to bust out his phone and film the whole scenario. But no,
probably his last testament.
Yeah,
what it was. Yeah, very impressive. I mean, I think you did the right thing. Like, you don't turn your back on those things.
No, you don't.
If you see in the beginning of the video, though, she had a cub, at least a cub, maybe a couple of cubs.
There was 2. Yes.
Was there?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at it a couple of times, and you just see them right in the first couple seconds of the video, and then she comes out, and she's clearly, protecting her cubs. So that was kind of a weird encounter.
Yeah, he did the right thing, though. I mean, but still, he's hiking alone. I was just like, saw so many things wrong with what he was doing at first, but then so many things right at the same time. Sure. But yeah, to kind of move on a little bit, I was thinking about something. So based on, I hate to continue to go back to photography, but I'm just so interested in just picking your brain about that. Sure. So you've met some pretty cool people in the industry, or various industries. I mean, the firearms industry. I mean, there's been a few other industries you've worked with. Who's been the coolest? I
don't know if I could say exactly. I've worked with some cool people shooting, a lot of cool photos across a lot of different industries. I've got a bunch of images with a gallery that's over in Reno, Nevada. I've got photos that are published across multiple beauty and portrait magazines, across landscape magazines. I've had some photos that I took at the Great Reno Balloon Race, where I'm actually up in a balloon shooting down. That were amazing. The people I worked with on that were great, including the pilot of the Zolly hot air balloon. I've just kind of had some cool opportunities to shoot, air shows where I'm out on the tarmac with access to basically whatever I want. You get to know a lot of really cool people. Another cool opportunity that I had the opportunity to go down and shoot photos and shoot on Taryn Butler's range down in Taryn.
That's right.
Taryn Tactical Innovations in Simi Valley, California. So that's just a little ways outside of LA. So drove over, picked up Jared Clausen and Long Range Shooters of Utah, Bryce.
Oh yeah.
And we headed out there and shot with Taryn Butler. He's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Shot on the range. Shot their new Combat Master.
Yeah. For those that don't know what Combat Master is, that's if you've ever seen John Wick, it should tell you everything you need to know. But yeah, man, that's cool. Like Taryn Butler seems like a pretty solid dude. Like he seems nice. I mean, there's been a lot of little controversies and things here, but I don't judge people for that kind of thing. Like I like what he's doing for the industry. I like what a lot of people in that realm that he's worked with are doing in this industry. Yeah, I mean, influencers and stuff like that. And I don't know, they just seem. I think a lot of people, once you get to know them personally, like you just see a whole nother side of them, and I'm sure you've seen that too. And,
oh, sure.
Yeah. And that's good. That's good to see.
Yeah. Certainly a different side, but also, you get to know people's strengths and weaknesses in kind of a short amount of time, the products that I've been able to work with and shoot and review and represent, etc. Whether it's 2011 Combat Masters, whether it's products from local guys around here, right. Trigicon at one point I was doing photography for them. It's cool, it's fun, it pushes me to get out there, and I've just really had kind of a good time of it. So
yeah, and as you've been in that kind of professional realm, I mean, how do you get plugged into these people? Like, I mean, I think we were kind of talking about how you started to do professional things, but when did you start doing, like, did you get noticed by somebody or did you reach out to somebody? I just don't know that part of your story.
Yeah. It's a lot of both. It's a lot of, who you know, but it's also a lot of like, are you willing to take that shot?
Yeah. Yeah.
I reached out to Taryn cold and just said, hey, I'd love to come, I'm a photographer. Here's my stuff. I'd love to come out and shoot some photos, and he said, cool. Here's my guy, reach out to him and get a date on the calendar. And I said, phenomenal, I'll be there.
My agent.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I wish one day I aspire to be wealthy enough to be able to say something like that.
I have an agent. Yeah, no kidding. Anyway.
So it's really, it's really about taking advantage of the opportunities that come to you, but also going out and making opportunities and not being afraid of rejection. I've reached out to a lot of people to say, hey, would love to try, photograph, come out to your place, whatever. Yeah. And receive no response or no.
They leave you on red.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. That's happened to me a lot of times, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't remember those times.
No.
I remember the times where I went and did some cool stuff, went and shot, photos with tactical dev out in the desert.
Oh yeah.
Or not in the desert, but in the studio when I shot, with the Tier 1 Conceal guys, a photo shoot out in the desert with smoke bombs, and just shot some funny photos.
Good stuff.
Yeah, the funny clips that we've kind of shot over the years.
Yeah.
Going out and filming and helping Long Range Shooters of Utah at his clinics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So those are times that I enjoy.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I mean, you get a lot of. I think people just forget that. You just got to take that shot. And I've learned too that, in the age of social media, that's really all it takes. Cause it's literally just a message away. just from a yes or no. What's the word? And that's kind of back to what I was saying earlier. In your 20s, you care about what everybody thinks.
Sure.
And you don't want to take that shot. You don't want to take that quote unquote risk, but it's really not a risk at all. Because like I said, the worst they can say is no.
And I think when you're in your 20s, especially your early 20s, you're still kind of under that impression that like real adults, have their stuff together.
I'm adulting. Like,
yeah.
You were adulting probably at 16 anyway. Like,
sure.
I don't know.
You're operating at that level anyways.
Yeah,
but I think you still have this kind of belief that 35-year-olds, that's when you really get it together. and you get to be 35, and that's when I think you kind of realize like, all right, nobody really has it together.
Yeah. And that's a good point too, because like like we were saying earlier, you are your own impediment. You're your own roadblock.
Sure.
And if you think a 35, 50-year-old has it all together, they've got a yacht, they've got a this, they've got a that, all the material things, oh, he's made it. Yep. But really, you can make it right now. Like that's kind of the thing. Like you can make you pave the way for yourself. I mean, obviously,
I think it's a mindset, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And you really have to kind of get out of your head a bit and look at it from a big perspective. Like for example, this podcast, I'm not looking to make money from it. Like it's fun.
Sure.
Like I love doing this stuff. It's fun. It's audio, it's video, it's a lot of stuff. And
you're learning all those things, and it's pushing you to get out and talk to people.
Yeah. And honestly, that's probably, I like talking to people anyway, but I mean, as I've reached out to people, yeah, I've gotten people, oh no, sorry, I just don't have time for that, or whatever. Yeah, it's whatever. But it's just been fun to it's kind of an adrenaline rush when I'm like about to ask somebody like, hey, you want to be on the podcast, or something like that. And they're like, yeah, sure. Let's schedule a date. Let's do it. And I'm just like, cool, let's do it. Sure. It's reward. That's where I kind of get, that's where it is for me. That's my bread and butter. It's just like being able to like step into people's, I don't know, learn about them and have other people learn about them. That's why I wanted to start the Epic Handshake podcast, because these people deserve to be recognized. And I think you're probably one of the most humble people I know. I mean, not many photographers, will
I'm
do
definitely
things.
the most humble person you've ever met.
Yes, he is the most humble person ever. Same here. I think I'm pretty humble.
Yeah,
but
certainly.
But I mean, like, you'd never know looking at somebody that they do all these cool things, and maybe you feel that you're insignificant, that your work isn't the best maybe, but I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think it's just one of those things that you just do what you love and enjoy it, enjoy that learning, that learning process and,
all
that.
I think where you're going with that is that you and I have a lot of things in common. I think, we've gone down a couple of similar paths with photography, with audio visual, with video production, et cetera. Right. And I'm not a great video producer, but it was an area that I could obsess over. It was an area that I could, try and improve and learn a new skill. And what you probably, this is what I get out of video production, is that I'm creating something, I'm making something, and it's hard, and maybe it's not great every time, but I'm making something, and that's what fulfills me. Yeah. And I think that's probably, I think that'll resonate with you. Yeah.
And I think those people that, have that, and I've talked about this in other podcast episodes, but, when people like, it's all their intention, their initial intention, like, oh, I'm going to do this so I can make money. Oh, I'm going to do this because I'm going to meet all these cool people. And, I don't know. That just really bugs me when people start off that way. I mean, sure, they can be really successful sometimes, but other times I think that you can, with that mindset, you can get burnt out really fast, because like you were saying first, and I think you're doing it the right way. I mean, who am I to say, but I think, in my opinion, I think you're doing it the right way, where you don't necessarily want to get paid for the stuff you do, because it's fun. It's rewarding. You see the smile on other people's faces. Even like that example we were saying of, you did those family portraits and you thought they were terrible, but they thought they were great.
They loved them.
Yeah, because I mean, to the untrained eye, I mean, everything's going to be amazing, you know, especially if somebody's got this really cool camera setup, or they've got an excellent looking guitar and they're up on stage or something, you know, they're doing all this cool stuff and they're like, wow, I want to do that, even though it's in somebody's, like, say they're at a concert in the backyard, like that's still pretty cool, you know. Like, I don't know, I think just having the mindset of doing it because it's fun, that's where you find the most reward. It's a very sustainable way of I guess pursuing hobbies.
Well, I think what I'm in it for, right? The reason I do it is that it's a creative outlet where I have to learn and work to be good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I get satisfaction out of that.
Yeah.
And I'm not the world's greatest photographer. I've taken some good images and I've been purposeful about that and I've learned a lot about it, right? But I have zero doubt that my best images and probably even the majority of my good images are still ahead of me.
Yeah.
I'm just a little further down the path now,
Yeah.
you know? And I think, you know, just to touch on the point of like being paid for photos, I don't expect to ever shoot a wedding for money because it completely flips the script on why I'm doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get fulfillment out of making a couple $100 or even a couple $1,000 on a wedding where I'm forced to perform and the pressure's on, etc.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not in it for that. I'm in it for get me out in the middle of nowhere in the pitch dark and have an adventure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And also I probably wouldn't want to deal with moms.
Sure.
Bottom line,
Sure.
You know, I've seen my cousins used to have a DJing company. I used to help them out, and so I've seen my fair share of what bridezillas and
Sure.
momzillas, dadzillas, brotherzillas. Dude, like it's all out there, and it's terrible.
I
But
bet.
yeah, you know, you're right. Like I think I'm of that same vein. Like I don't care. You know, yeah, it'd be nice, but it's not my main goal. You know, so
Sure.
And
my main goal, and I think this is where you're going with this as well. My main goal is to create.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's an outlet for me to make something. And if I get 1,000 likes or three likes, as long as I like it, I don't really care.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've kind of slowed down on posting on Instagram recently because,
Same.
you know, because I trend into different hobbies, or I move into this, or I don't have time, or Instagram is, you know, is shadow banning me for one reason or another.
Yeah.
But I still love it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I trend back into that and I post a bunch of photos up because I had a great photo shoot, and I love that. That's what I'm in it for. I'm not in it for anything else.
Yeah. And I think what's really cool too, and why I've kind of taken to you, is because I think you're just so willing to teach people. And I think that like once you get to a certain level in any type of hobby or interest or whatever, once you start imparting that knowledge to somebody, that means a lot to people. And so I think, I mean, I'd like to get to that point where I'm like, yes, I am super excited to teach you, but I think it's getting to that point that's a little bit more difficult. But yeah, being a professional, being an expert in your field, in your niche, whatever. I guess to segue into something a little different. So you have a few kids, you know, how do you hope to influence them to I guess to create, to be their own person?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a daughter, but she's little, you know, I haven't gotten to that point where I'm like, yes, I'm going to teach you this, but I know what I'm going to teach you, but don't touch the outlet type thing, you know?
So, yeah. Don't run in the street. Don't
Yeah.
touch the outlet. Yeah. So that's a really good question. And this is something that I put a lot of thought into. Let me give you an example. I have a few 3D printers, you know, because I'm a maker. I have a shop in my backyard where I shoot photos. I, you know, build cars. I build, you know, wooden furniture.
That's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens. But it's where my tool. Like I spend money on only a few things, right? I'm not an incredibly good-looking guy. I'm under no like false pretenses that you know, spending money on high-end clothes, you know, make me look any better.
Sure.
What I spend my money on are tools and materials, and I've kind of come to that realization over the last couple of years. And it's, you know, like I buy a camera not because I love that camera. It's because it gives me X capability, and that's what my shop is all about. It's tools and material.
Yeah.
And I'm very thoughtful about getting my kids out there, you know, hey, what projects do you want to work on? Let's do this next, you know? And my son recently got into, he's 13, and he got into 3D printing, and he found the Halo assault rifle.
Oh, yeah.
He found the models for that on Thingiverse.
Yeah.
And so he grabbed them off and went through brought them to the slicer, applied all the settings, downloaded the G code, sent it to the printer. And he's printed out all sorts of amazing stuff.
Cool.
I have a deal with him, and that is that I will buy him as much filament as he could print with, but he's got to do the printing, right? He's got to do the work. He's got
to be the supervisor.
He thinks he's ripping me off. the best couple $100 of material I've ever spent in my life. Like that's education that you almost cannot buy. Right?
Oh yeah.
So that's how I teach my kids. And we go out and we walk and we talk about, subjects that are hard. We talk about, fun things like, I was doing some testing on some stuff yesterday, brought my son out to the salt flats, and I jumped in the passenger seat, and he's going, "What in the world are you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, you're driving, jump in." He's 13. He had a blast.
Oh, I bet
driving
I
on the
bet
salt
he
flats.
did.
It was the best thing he's done in a month for sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember when I was that age doing that same exact thing. I drove my uncle's van off of a dirt road and hit a fence post, but he was just so happy that I did that. Yeah. No, dude, that's a good way to teach kids. Just throw them in the front seat for a minute. And let them flounder for a second.
Yep.
I wish more people would have done that for me as a kid.
Sure.
I think when that could be applied even to adults. But you have to be that person putting yourself in the driver's seat for a minute, and I don't know that's cool. That's a great way to do that for your boy. And I wish, I had filament like there's a lot of things I could I never thought about 3D printing things, but I'm like, if my dad did that, yes, I'm going to find everything I'm going to 3D print shoes,
I was the kid that would take electronics apart because I wanted the little motors so that I could build a little car that would drive around, or I don't know, I was playing with circuits and pulling stuff apart.
Are you a left brain? Would you say you're a left brain or a right brain?
I don't really know.
That's okay. You seem like a left brain. Are you pretty good at math?
I'm actually not. So
okay, but are you a coder?
I'm not.
Okay.
Let me take that back. I can do light coding. So I'm a network engineer by trade.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've gone into IT management. So now I manage a large group of people that does IT operations at one of the world's Fortune 10 companies. So I don't code necessarily. I've got a bunch of people that do coding for me.
Yeah.
I can get by in C. I can get by in VBA from Excel macros, etc.
Yeah.
But I'm not really great at it. Like when I'm doing Arduino prototypes or something like that, I'll get in and kind of hack it together. But when I really need some help, I've got some people that come in and help me.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot with the left or right brain thing, but now that I think about it, most creators that I know, it's kind of falls into that artistic portion of the brain. So it's like you could be a right brain. I don't know. I'm just trying to classify you. But
don't get me wrong. I totally nerd out when I have coding projects to do. I'm just not very trained at it. Sure. I'm more like the most persistent guy that you've probably ever met.
Yeah.
And I love the learning process. Whether it's my kids or you and I shooting photos out in the shop and just kind of collaborating and stuff. Like I love that learning process. I try and be what I wish that I had around when I was learning at whatever stage.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of it is just, hey, get out there and fail and find out what works and then find out what doesn't work and then go do that more. Do
it again and again.
I was shooting with Taryn Butler out on his range, and one of the funniest things he says, right? So I'm out there with this 2011 Combat Master, and he's showing me some things. He's like, all right, when you're transitioning targets, you're going to shoot this one first because it appears behind, from the barricade first. So you're going to kind of shoot right to left, even though that's counterintuitive, and you're going to turn your hips and it's going to be like a turret where like your body's shooting forward and your legs are turning sideways. And I was like, okay, cool. So I get out there and Jade's out there and she's, shooter ready, stand by, go. The timer beeps and I shoot through the stage, kind of like not 85, 95% of my speed, right? So like pretty close to full speed, right? Yeah. And I'm like, how did I do it? I turned to Taryn. I'm like, how did I do? And he goes, yeah, like do that, but just faster.
Of course, coming from him.
Like, all right, thanks, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know what I would do in that situation. You know, like you're with these like ultimate professional pistol shooters, you know.
I'm literally with Jared Clausen.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
From Tier 1 Conceal. Yeah. And Taryn Butler. And they're like, yeah, that looks good. Just do it faster next time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Actually, you can find some of the examples of Taryn's stuff like on his YouTube channel. It's pretty intense stuff.
He's fast.
Yeah,
he's very fast.
He trains a lot of people in Hollywood. He trains a lot of people. You know, I mean, he's done Halle Berry. Like he's trained Halle Berry. He's trained Keanu Reeves.
I mean, you name it. He's had Kardashians out there.
Oh yeah.
I think when I showed up on day one, I had to wait for Charlize Theron to finish. Like he's training all the celebrities up there.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool, and he's got a good range, and he's a good shooter. He's got a good program put together.
And it's interesting that it's in California of all places too.
It's near Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's not too far for you to get the celebs up.
That's true, and they back you. And I would just wonder the permitting behind that. Like, I mean, like the NFA stuff.
There's an exception process, and I don't know if it's through California DOJ or how they do it, but he has SBRs.
Yeah.
You know, in California and suppressors and like the whole deal, and he has an exception for it. So I don't know the details on that, but he can have those.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the logistics on that because I've always wondered that seeing his videos. But now that you say that, being so close to Hollywood, he's got a lot of endorsements. He's got a lot of people pulling strings. I'm sure, guaranteed.
Sure,
he's built that name and empire for himself, and that's good.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, I've shot with Jared as well, shooting film while he's shooting trick shots and stuff. We did a funny video where he's kind of simulating the recoil of the Combat Master, and then he goes, let me turn the recoil down, and he kind of turns the dial, and he's like, all right, this is with recoil all the way down, and it's funny.
Yeah,
you go check it out. But another thing we did in that same shoot is he was shooting a steel target at 100 yards, double tap on a steel plate at 100 yards with a Combat Master. This is a 9mm pistol.
Right. Yeah.
Before you could hear the rings back. So it was double tap, pow, pow, here, ding, ding, on a 100 yard
crap.
Steel target. And we got it. It took a couple of tries, but he's just that good.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he does right. Obviously, because he designs some of the rifles he does. Yes, SBRs he's put out. But I mean, I've never actually really seen him do rifle before. It's always pistol on his channel.
Is this Jared or Taryn?
Or Taryn. Sorry,
Taryn. You'll see it. You'll see shotguns and rifles. He does the SIG MPXs, and he's got a nice custom. It's so if you've seen John Wick 3, it's the one he tomahawks over his head.
Yes.
Which is kind of a funny scene. So funny thing. That actual prop was at Terran Tactical when we were there. We played with the prop guns and the whole deal. And it's got the scuff marks on it, and it was cool. Yeah, it's cool to play around.
Like that stuff, I just didn't know. Like you would never know.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. But last thing, before we end, I'd like to keep it at about an hour. But So going forward, what are some things that you think you might try to dabble in? It could be with photography, it could be with, any of your various hobbies. Is there something that's kind of piquing your interest right now? I mean, there's things behind the scenes that we won't mention on the podcast, but
well, I'll talk a little bit. And I'll talk in generality. So I'm working on a product that I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but by end of year, I plan to have it launched. It has to do with long range shooting and some microelectronics and stuff like that. So I've been spending a lot of time in product development, prototyping, and really just doing a lot of due diligence around testing and data collection, etc. And I really expect that to go well. Another thing that I'm very interested in, and have been interested in a while. I think I've owned, gosh, how many now? Maybe 6 motorcycles, but I'm between. You're never like out of the game if you drive motorcycles. You're kind of between bikes.
Yeah, I was just talking to my wife about that today. Anyway.
Yeah, let me know how that goes. Yeah. But I'd love to get into some more motorcycles. Interested in like the Triumph Thruxton RS that they just released, which is a cool bike. I've always wanted to take a Ducati 1098.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, like a 2008, 2009 or so. And I want to strip it and turn it into a cafe racer. I think that'd be super fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a fast, amazing bike.
Oh yeah.
So I got some things like that I'm kind of thinking through. I've got a TIG welder, and I'll probably do all the custom exhaust work. I'm not a great TIG welder, but I mean, people who are great TIG welders started as not very good TIG welders, and I'm sure that I figured out. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they started off as apprentices or in their garage.
So yeah, well, hey, that's me.
Yep.
That's me for sure.
Yeah.
I guess I look at things. Maybe what makes me a little bit different is I look at things and say, instead of saying, "Oh, I can never do that," right? I don't think that way. I don't know that the last time that I ever thought that. I look at things and say, "Wow, that looks hard. I can't do that right now. If I wanted to, I know how to go and do it. I know what it takes to do that."
Yeah.
And sometimes I say, you know what, not worth it to invest the effort at this point.
Yeah.
Or maybe like I have no interest in cooking. It's just one thing I'm not good at. And not only that, like, could I be good at it? For sure, I would. It's another area I could totally obsess in. Just not interested in it right now.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I get really good at it.
When you're retired, down
go.
the road, you plenty of time to just, let's look up Rachel Ray.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah,
I'll figure it out at some point. But just that persistence and mentality around, hey, I could do anything that anybody else can do if I'm willing to invest the time and the effort. And sometimes I am, and sometimes it's not the right time, and sometimes I'm just flat not.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And, with things like that, I mean, what was I going to say? Sorry. But dude, I just appreciate all your input. I just appreciate you just being so open, to doing this. And, you're one of those people that I've just really come to look up to, like I'm from Arizona. I have all my friends and family are there. Coming here to Utah, I had some connections, family, through my wife and some friends, but not many. I went to school in Logan, and so all of them went somewhere else, and so like coming into this Utah shooter dudes group, and encountering you and a slew of other people through them. It's just been really cool to just rub shoulders with all these different people in these different professions and things like that. And, I just hope to keep, collaborating and just seeing what you create, man. Like I'm really stoked to see, these projects you're working on and just, what I can learn from you, what I could potentially teach you. I don't know exactly what I would teach you, but I
learn every time we get together, right?
I don't know. You have all your podcasting stuff there, so maybe not that. Anyway, but yeah. Is there anything you want to plug before ending? Like,
I'll just say, if you want to check me out, blackbriar.media on Instagram or blackbriar.daily. Also on the web at blackbriar.media.
Yeah. Blackbriar.media. Yeah, man. But I guess we'll end there. And for those listening, for those watching, be sure to subscribe, be sure to download, be sure to do all that stuff. Don't really care if you do, but if you do, enjoy it. And we will talk to you in the next one.